After today's tense hearing, our Griff Jenkins trying to get more answers from acting IRS Commissioner Danny Werfel.
Mr. Commissioner, Griff of Fox News, can you just tell us how you plan to implement that transparency? We've heard a lot about transparency, so there's some skepticism, obviously. How will we implement it?
Look, we just answered a lot of questions in the hearing. We're going to answer more questions going forward. Right now, I'm going to get back to the IRS and get to work.
What was your reaction to the videos, sir? Did you see the videos, of the dancing videos?
As I mentioned, we just answered a lot of questions, and we're going to answer more questions going forward. There's going to be plenty of time to do press interviews. I think right now it's most important I get back to the IRS and I get to work. Thank you.
Do you believe that the agents in Cincinnati deserve an apology if the direction came from above?
Okay, it's bad enough the IRS targeted people, but do they have to do this too and bill us for it? Take a close look at this newly released IRS line dancing video.
No, y'all not just getting in class. Get in line now.
Look, I never signed up for this. No, seriously, I never signed up for this.
Are you guys ready? I don't see you being ready. I need you guys to get in line. Come on now, chop, chop. Can you get here, please? Get in line. Thank you, thank you.
Where's...
On my cue, to the right. To the left. 3, 4. It's so challenging to teach them, even though the lyrics are the directions to the dance. My goodness. To the right, to the right, to the right.
This is harder than doing an op review.
To the left. I need a straight line. You're trying to get ready for Anaheim. Stay in line.
Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane.
I need my line straight, Mr.
They don't pay me enough to do this. I'm not an executive. I just play one on TV.
Let the music flow through your bones right now, okay?
The SB Shuffle. Didn't the Chicago Bears do this in 1985?
The Washington Post's Ed O'Keefe joins us. Ed, we keep hearing trying to get ready for Anaheim in that video. What was that reference to?
It is a reference to a conference that took place in August 2010 in Anaheim, California. About 2,600 employees at mostly a training meeting. This video was aired at the end of the conference, preceding some kind of event that occurred sort of as the finale. We don't know all the details of that just yet. And in fairness, anyone who lives west of Washington would know that that was not a line dance. That was the Cupid Shuffle.
Oh, sorry. It was a
most of your viewers probably have seen a good line dance before. That was not it necessarily.
Good to know. Good to know.
But that was one of at least 2 or 3 videos that aired during the conference. There's another one, sort of a Star Trek parody, that was used as a training video as they discussed various aspects of what this unit. It was called the Small Business and Self-Entity or Small Entity Unit, and they're basically responsible for dealing with small business owners as they do their taxes. And there were various things discussed in this training video about sort of the fraud to look for and the other things that they're supposed to do as they deal with different people who come to them with questions. Those videos combined roughly cost about $60,000 to produce.
Which is sort of interesting. It's not that high a price, but we just got them. Why were they just released on Friday?
Well, they were released. The Star Trek one was actually released back in March because some congressmen had heard about it. This one was released on Friday, sort of to get ahead of this report, which is due out tomorrow.
Which is something interesting to me. That shows sort of shows a guilty conscience to me. The fact that they know the report's coming out tomorrow, they know they're going to get caught with their pants down tomorrow, so they quickly try to shove it out on Friday night. On a Friday night. You know, it's just it's the whole idea. It's just to me it's sort of indicative of the way they're thinking over at the IRS.
I think the new leadership, the Danny Werfel, who we saw testifying in your last segment, you know, those guys understand now they've got to try to get as much of this out as possible and just sort of get it out of the way so that they can move on in rebuilding this place. But you know, as far as we know, this was one of 225 conferences that occurred between fiscal 2010 and 2012.
To the tune of how much money?
About $50 million. Now, you think $50 million is a big sum. Remember, in the grand scheme of federal spending, it's a drop in the bucket. And if you think about it, $50 million divided by 225 conferences and however many thousands of employees who showed up, you could slice and dice that and say it really isn't a lot, but others would say it is. And one of the other videos that came out, we should point out, there's a Gilligan's Island spoof that was done in 2011. The reason they decided to do that video was because they had canceled all the conferences. So instead of flying people to one city, they just showed them this spoof of Gilligan's Island and said that was better than flying everyone into some city.
I'll tell you why the $50 million is bad, because the $50 million is indicative of the way they think about treating other people's monies, taxpayers' monies, for parties, for themselves. It's indicative. It's part of the Washington culture, which is terrible when a lot of American people are trying to keep jobs, to put food on the table and keep their kids in school. So it's, that's the nature of it. And if it's training to do their jobs, well, they're not doing a very good job, because look at the targeting that's been done in Ohio, and God knows it went up the chain. Other people had to have known about it, supervisors or somebody, or either if you didn't know about it, you should have known about it. So they didn't do their job very well either. So it wasn't very good training. But you're not, you don't here to defend the IRS. Can I say one other thing?
Sure.
Kelly O'Donnell at NBC tweeted that the IRS spent $11,430 to have happiness expert lead 4 workshops.
There was something like that. There was another person who came and got about $14,000 to talk about leadership through art, and apparently painted some portraits during the session. And then there was somebody else who got a few $1,000 more to do another conversation during the thing.
$27,500 for innovation expert at a 2010 conference. An innovation expert.
We're going to hear all about this tomorrow when this report comes out. Apparently, there's all sorts of things like this in there.
This is unbelievable. Anyway, Ed, always nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Well, revolt in Ohio, a Cincinnati IRS employee insisting Washington is throwing us under the bus. And that is not all. Congressional investigators heard from workers at the IRS office at the center of the scandal in Cincinnati. Stephen Dennis from CQ Roll Call joins us with more. Nice to see you.
It's great to be here.
Okay, so what are they saying in Ohio?
So you've got these 2 IRS agents, basically, that they interviewed.
Who's they?
That this is the committee. This is Darrell Iss's committee, Oversight and Government Reform, going in and taking people's testimony and putting people on the record and saying, okay, well, were you told to do this? And one of the people said, yes, we were told to basically target Tea Party groups. And that it was, they were just doing their job. They were just doing what their higher-ups told them to do. So the inference is that it wasn't just a few rogue folks in Cincinnati who just dreamed up this plot by themselves, but that it was actually ordered from Washington. You had a second employee who actually was so uncomfortable with the direction to go after Tea Party groups that they requested and got a transfer. And that, to me, is a pretty, if you're upset enough to get a transfer, that's a pretty interesting charge. Now, what we still don't know is putting names to who actually ordered this, who
Why don't we know that? Because that would have been my follow-up question. If I'm on the committee and I interviewed 2 from Cincinnati who say that we're getting thrown under the bus and Washington did it, I'd say, who in Washington?
Exactly. And we're still waiting to see these full transcripts. We're waiting to see these people actually testify potentially. And there's a lot more employees than just 2. Darrell Isse has talked about maybe 18 more of these kinds of interviews. So there's a lot more going to come out. We're probably going to get emails and other kinds of documentation that's going to shed the light on who knew what, who knew when, and who ordered it. And the key here is, it's one thing if this just goes back to the IRS office in Washington. Washington's a pretty big place. There's hundreds of thousands of government employees here. What really matters, and will keep this alive a lot longer, is if there's any ties to the White House. And so far, there really isn't anything that ties this directly to the White House as them having anything to do with actually ordering this to happen.
Why can't this move faster? I know this is Washington, but this has been going on now. We've known about it for a couple weeks, and it's sort of drip, 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 drip. I think, to quote Speaker Boehner, I think he made some reference to drip, drip, drip the other day in reference to scandals. But why can't they just haul these people up, put them under oath, do it very publicly? Let's actually have that old-fashioned transparency that we get, we get told about all the time. Just put them up and do it and move it.
Well, Washington tends to work pretty slowly. You get lawyers involved. It takes a long time. I do think that's going to happen. You saw that with Lois Lerner. She, took the Fifth Amendment and said, I'm not going to testify. I would be surprised to see a lot of other people start taking the Fifth Amendment at these lower levels, because they don't want to be, there's an FBI investigation. You don't want to say the wrong thing. So I do think we're going to see a lot more of these people come forward and testify. I do think that there's a danger here for Republicans. They have a pretty good story here. They have a scandal. Their groups were targeted. There's a potential for a lot of political advantage for them. But there's also potential when you start doing things like name calling, like Darrell Isse did the other day when he called Jay Carney sort of the paid liar kind of thing. If you are talking about name calling, that kind of clouds the whole issue.
It would be nice if it weren't the political payoff that they're looking for, but instead get to the bottom, because it's a very terrible thing that happens to some Americans being targeted, rather than sort of the the engineering they do around this town to try to get political favor or political advantage. But let's just get to the bottom and get the facts.
Well, that would be great, but you know the way Washington works is people are always looking to see if there's an advantage for them in a story, and if there is, they want to push it harder, and if there isn't, they want to go to something else. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Now to tonight's hot button issue on GretaWire.com. We've seen it all in the last few weeks. So between the IRS targeting and the IRS employee videos, do you think there is any way the IRS can be fixed? Or do we have to scrap the IRS and start all over? Go to GretaWire.com right now and vote in our poll. And